Hi.
Hi.
I'm here for the meeting.
Do you mind signing in for me? Thank you.
Did it start already?
So it's an open house format. We are currently playing our video presentations in the classroom.
Sorry, I'm recording.
Sorry?
I'm going to be recording.
Yeah,
Is it okay if I'm
Yeah, of course.
recording?
So there's English presentation here, Spanish presentation's the same exact presentation in the other room. Then we have the two exhibit board rooms. So this one is about the project background, and that one is about the study process.
Okay.
Room 2, we have copies of the presentations, and then we also have surveys as well.
Okay.
Feel free to take it back.
Did you get that list I sent you?
I did, yes, and we included them in our next distribution.
The driver team will then evaluate a range of alternatives and identify their potential benefits and impacts. Based on the evaluation of the alternatives, the project team will select a preferred alternative.
Along, just raise your hand, I can bring it over, and then I will go ahead and get this started.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the first public meeting for the Burnham Avenue Grade Separation Project. Thank you for joining us today to learn about this important project that will positively impact residents and commuters in the village of Burnham, the Chicago neighborhood of Pegwish, and other surrounding communities. During today's presentation, we will introduce the project team, provide an overview of the Burnham Avenue Grade Separation Project, discuss the anticipated process, review how you can get involved, and discuss the project's next steps. At the end of the presentation, we encourage you to head over to the exhibit tour to review more information about the project and talk to the project team. The Burnham Avenue Grade Separation Project will be led by the Village of Burnham with assistance from the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. They will help drive the decision-making process as we progress throughout the project. Our consultant team will be led by Mont McDonald, who is responsible for the engineering and design of the project, and Maury Alley Communications will lead the public involvement and outreach efforts for the project. Now, we will dive into the background of the project and why it is crucial to improving the quality of life for the Village of Burnham and surrounding communities. The Burnham Avenue Grade Separation Project will focus on improving safety and mobility at the at-grade crossing near the intersection of Burnham Avenue and Brainerd Avenue, where the roadway intersects with 5 railroad tracks. Currently, the Village of Burnham experiences 14,200 vehicles per day at this location and an average of over 3 hours in downed gate time per day. The multiple tracks and rail traffic that frequents this at-grade crossing results in safety, congestion, and mobility issues for the community and commuters. During this project, the team will evaluate several alternatives that will resolve these issues and improve the quality of life for the community. This Phase 1 process has been fully funded by the Surface Transportation Program Shared Regional Fund, administered by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, also known as CMAP. We would like to mention that this project is considered regionally significant. In 2019, CMAP identified this as a priority location as part of the Northeastern Illinois Priority Grade Crossings due to road and pedestrian safety concerns with potential rail operations. This is a map of the project area, showing where Burnham Avenue intersects with 5 railroad tracks immediately south of Brainerd Avenue. The railroads at the crossing include the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad, CS&S, which Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, NICTD, operates on, CSX Transportation, and Norfolk Southern Railway. As previously mentioned, the at-grade crossing causes safety, congestion, and mobility issues for the community and commuters. Based on these issues, we have determined that this project is needed to improve safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles, and railroad users at the at-grade crossing near the intersection of Burnham Avenue and Brainerd Avenue, where Burnham Avenue intersects with 5 railroad tracks, and to reduce congestion and improve mobility near this at-grade crossing, located at the border of the village of Burnham and city of Chicago. By addressing the at-grade crossing where Burnham Avenue intersects with 5 rail lines, the community's overall quality of life will be greatly improved. Benefits will include enhancing safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, cars, and buses that intersect with freight, passenger, and commuter trains, reducing congestion that currently exists from vehicles waiting at downed gates, providing improved mobility in the village of Burnham and Chicago neighborhood of Hegewisch, and improving the environment by decreasing carbon emissions emitted from idling vehicles. As many of you know, there are several other projects taking place in close proximity to the Burnham Avenue grade separation project. We wanted to outline the other projects to reduce confusion. The yellow line on the map represents the Burnham Resurfacing project, which is occurring from Brainerd Avenue South to 159th Street. Construction has already begun for this project, which is being led by the Illinois Department of Transportation. The red line on the map represents the Brainerd Avenue Improvement Project, which extends from Muskegon Avenue to State Line Road. This project is also being led by the Illinois Department of Transportation, with construction anticipated to begin later this year. The light blue line on the map represents the Burnham Multimodal Connector, which is a proposed grade-separated pedestrian and bicycle bridge that crosses over multiple railroad tracks and Brainerd Avenue. This project is being led by the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. The dark blue line shows a proposed on-street bike route that is a part of the Burnham Multimodal Connector. And lastly, the green line represents the planned Burnham Greenway Trail, which is being led by the Village of Burnham and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. We will now review the process of the Burnham Avenue grade separation project. The development of this project will follow the Illinois Department of Transportation's project development process, which consists of 3 phases. We are currently in phase 1 of the project, which includes the preliminary engineering and environmental studies of the project. This phase will conclude when a preferred alternative has been selected and approved. After phase 1 has been completed, the project will move into phase 2, during which the final design, preparation of a construction contract, and any right-of-way acquisition that is needed takes place. After the conclusion of phase 2, the project will move into phase 3 construction. As mentioned, we are currently in phase 1. We started this phase by analyzing the corridor's existing conditions. This stage takes place to understand what infrastructure issues are present. Based on the analysis of the existing conditions, the project team can develop the study's purpose and need, which defines why the project is necessary. The project team will then move to identifying potential design alternatives and develop criteria to evaluate these alternatives. We would like to take a moment to define what an alternative is, which is a potential transportation design that is an improvement from the existing infrastructure. The project team will then evaluate a range of alternatives and identify their potential benefits and impacts. Based on the evaluation of the alternatives, the project team will select a preferred alternative to move forward into detailed design and construction. The Phase 1 process started in September 2021 when we began establishing the project's goals and purpose and need. We also began identifying stakeholders, developing the project's public involvement plan, and collecting data. This portion of the Phase 1 process will conclude August of this year. Then we will begin developing and analyzing alternatives, which we anticipate will take place from August 2022 to August 2023. During this step, we will host our second Community Advisory Group meeting and second public meeting. The preferred alternative selection and refinement will then take place from September 2023 to March 2024. This will coincide with our third and final Community Advisory Group meeting and public meeting. Phase 1 is then anticipated to conclude in September 2024. The project team has established a comprehensive and robust set of factors to be considered when evaluating the alternatives. The criteria that will be considered throughout the Phase 1 process will include safety, traffic operations, bicycle and pedestrian access, drainage and utility impacts, railroad operations, environmental impacts, community impacts, land acquisition needs, construction staging needs, and cost. In order to evaluate the alternatives using the determined criteria, the project team collected data in the project area. This consisted of performing surveys, traffic counts, subsurface utility locating, geotechnical fieldwork, and environmental field studies. We would like to note that stakeholders with utilities and infrastructure in the project area will be notified to obtain information that may be needed to comprehensively evaluate the alternatives. We also wanted to take time to recognize that all work performed during this project will be in accordance to state, local, and federal requirements, including the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. A primary goal will be to ensure the project fits its surroundings and preserves scenic, aesthetic, historic, and environmental resources while addressing safety and mobility. To help guide the Phase 1 process, we have established two groups, a community advisory group and a project study group. The KEG consists of businesses, community groups, transportation agencies, railroad representatives, and any other organizations that will represent the community and may be impacted by this project. This group's purpose is to be a body that is representative of the community that facilitates the discussion of issues and opportunities on behalf of the constituents. The KEG will meet 3 times throughout the project. The KEG is open to anyone who is interested, so please talk to a project team member after the presentation to learn more about joining. The project team has also established a project study group, PSG. This group assists with providing technical oversight and expertise in key areas as we move throughout the project. This group consists of government agencies, railroad representatives, and a group of engineering and public involvement consultants. We will now discuss the public outreach strategies that the project will follow. This project will follow the principles of the Illinois Department of Transportation's Context-Sensitive Solutions, CSS policy. This policy is a collaborative approach that provides everyone the opportunity to participate and share comments or concerns about the study's objectives and the alternatives. Stakeholders that have identified and will be engaged throughout the project include residents, business owners, community representatives, schools, neighborhood groups, hospitals, emergency services, and special interest groups. We also recognize and understand the makeup of the Burnham and Hegewisch communities, which is key to engaging residents and maximizing participation. We will ensure that we are partnering with community leaders to guarantee that stakeholders that are hard to reach are informed about the project. We also want to guarantee that project information and materials will be accessible to all audiences, so we will be providing all materials in English and Spanish to keep residents informed and up to date. During this project, we are committed to providing various avenues for you to receive information and provide your feedback. We have developed an accessible project website that will house all the most up-to-date project information, www.burnhamgradeseparation.com. Please note that there is a Spanish language option at the top of the homepage to translate the website. We will host approximately 3 public meetings throughout the Phase 1 process, and we will be sending out newsletters throughout the project to keep all community members and stakeholders up to date. The ways that the community can provide input will be at our public meetings, through our project email, through our project website, or by calling our project phone number.
Couldn't come past 130.
And now we will take a look at the project's next steps. After this meeting, we encourage you all to provide initial comments and questions to the project team. To be part of the official public meeting #1 record, we request you provide your feedback by Wednesday, August 17th. We have comment cards available for you to fill out today, but you may also reach us at the project email, our project website's Contact Us page, or by calling the project phone number. After our meeting tonight, all materials will be made available on the project website in English and Spanish. At the conclusion of this first round of outreach, the project team will advance to developing and analyzing alternatives. As mentioned before, please do not hesitate to contact us with questions and comments. Thank you for attending today's public meeting, and we encourage you to visit the exhibit room next door to review further project information and to talk with a project team member. Welcome to the first public meeting.
All right, thank you all for joining us for the presentation. That concludes this part. We have exhibit boards next door and project team members that can answer any questions that you have. Also up here, I have comment sheets and surveys if you'd like to participate. Thank you.
But then it has
So the multiple alternatives that we're considering, and so some that will have, you mentioned way, right, so the loss
Can
is
be
lower.
highly
Some
emphasized,
that
they
won't.
can have their say, and they can say, and then you have what, you get the alternative things or whatever, so.
Yeah.
And we're stuck down here. Different way, still solve the same thing in a more effective, in a negative way.
Right, yeah.
That's good.
It ain't gonna be on the skybooks, because I haven't seen any of it.
But
Maybe
it
there's
is here, I mean,
something
I'm
there.
at 140, and I'm like, I just can't.
You're gonna lose that.
Yeah.
And then, Ranchels is right here, the business Ranchels.
Right.
What are they gonna lose?
So some of the options that we're considering is that instead of going over, right, so instead of Burnham going up and over the tracks, we have some that are considered going under.
The water table's too high. I can tell you that right now.
So another thing we're looking
This is
at
a marsh.
the CSX track over there. Trying to move that closer to the north and southern tracks.
Okay.
So that would limit.
To move rail tracks, for to lay a set of tracks, it costs $1 million a mile.
So the CSX, we're working with CSX Norfolk Southern
Because there's
to.
like 5 cents for rail tracks.
It's just the.
And
It's
then
just the
we
one.
got China back here bringing their stuff in too.
It's just trying to move essentially from where the turn is right here through here for about a couple thousand feet, and then it's back to where it is. So.
It's $1 million a mile to remove the lay rails.
But yeah, to your point, right, so complex.
Straight. Now you're gonna put a curve in it, it's gonna be more.
But if we can do that, then we can minimize the impacts to properties in the neighborhood and potentially keep other roads open and connected through on Burnham at 140th.
Yeah, because that's our only way out.
So maybe that if we're able to move the track and have that cost be part of it, we're able to not potentially, impact other residential or commercial properties. We're looking at all those alternatives, but it is,
Yeah.
we are looking at trying to minimize impacts as much as possible.
They had to put in
through all of our
skyhooks in
work.
order to hold that bridge up.
Is phase one completely funded at this point?
Phase one is, yeah.
Okay.
The paper.
Are the railroads contributing, or do you expect them to contribute to, have they contributed to the phase one portion financially?
They have not. We would expect them to contribute. We would expect some support for construction. The figures would have to be worked out, but there are agreements in place that through other projects that we've seen in the region that there may be some ability to have the roads contribute for construction. But at this time, it's 100% federally funded, this project, for the phase one part of this project.
And do you know the dollar amount that is?
It's about 3.6 million for phase one.
And is the preferred route at this point? I know it's very early. Is there an under?
We're taking a look at over and under.
Can't go
We
under.
don't
Water
have
table's too high to
any
go under.
we're still just
This is federal
trying to figure out
marshland.
what all the impacts are of each alternative. So we've got over a dozen different alternatives we're looking at. So not just going over and under, but actually, adjusting where the intersection is, whether the intersection moves with it. So there's a lot of different potential ways to do it. So
This ain't gonna
each one of those has their own unique impacts and costs associated with that. So we're in the middle of that process trying to look at those. But when we come back out next time for public meeting, we'll have those alternatives for you to look at and be able to comment. And if you really like one, you can tell us, or if you really don't like one. And if you have a preference now, we'd like to hear that so that we can then get some more, that can help us as we develop the alternatives as well.
And land acquisition, do you know, with any of those scenarios, how much property would be acquired to make whatever
At this point,
proposals?
each one varies pretty significantly. On some may be very minimal, some stay in the same right of way, some could be a larger amount. There's trade-offs for each alternative. Some of them may impact properties less, some of them may cost less. We're still working through a lot of that information right now.
And related to that, is there a preference to go maybe
They
east
should
of
have put the
way,
airport here to begin
acquiring
with.
multiple property owners versus, say, on the east side? On the north end, you've got just a few property owners, and going to the south, you've got a large portion is Burnham Golf Course and
Yeah, so we are looking at some alternatives where the road would jog to the east, so it's more perpendicular with the tracks. There's some that go over Brainerd and connect through, where you would maybe look at some of the parking lots of Metro, NICD parking lots, having a road connect there. There's a range of options that we're taking a look at, but at this point, I don't know what any of the larger impacts are, because we're still trying to work out, and with the villages, the county, and the IDOT, we're all, and the city of Chicago, because it goes into the city as well, the impacts, trying to figure all that out. But like I said, hopefully I think we're trying to get another public meeting early next year, where we would have those alternatives, and all these materials and all future materials will be on the website, and we have comment cards here and on the website. So if you anytime you want to give feedback, we're open to it.
And any initial estimates of cost, actual construction, and timetables? I know there's a range of options, but from X to Z, from 3 years to 10 years construction?
I can say from other projects in the region, we've seen anywhere from construction costs from $30 million for a really easy one, to hundreds of millions of dollars. And those are looking at alternatives of looking at moving rails and stuff like that. So that's $500 million on one of them was moving rails and stuff like that. So
on the street, yeah.
So in terms of what the overall cost could be, we're really in a huge range right now of what it could be. But as part of each alternative, they'll be costing out what that alternative is expected to cost for construction and long-term maintenance for the bridge and for any pumping stations or anything like that. So all that's part of the pros and cons.
And with the Torrance and 130th grade separation done, is there a chance that this project may just fall to the wayside because an option is, this is inconvenient, it's environmentally bad, it's troublesome, but to relieve some of at least the vehicular traffic, just go down the street?
So we've seen that this project has its own utility, its own, there's plenty of delay here, and people wanting to use this. There's a lot of delay hours for both vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists. There's buses that utilize this crossing and connecting to the station, the Hegewisch station for NICD. There's a lot of reasons why this project is a good project to move forward with. Whether 130 and Torrance were done or wasn't done, I mean it has been, but this project is moving forward independently of that. And I'll say there's a lot of support behind this project. It's been, like I said, awarded 100% federal funding for the phase 1. And then as it moves forward and whoever hopefully takes on the next phases, there's a lot of support behind it. We've seen from elected officials and others that this is an important project for the region. And so at this time, I'd say it's got some momentum behind it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions on that?
I'm sorry, the on-street bike route?
So that's just right
Oh,
here. So that's
yeah.
yeah. So once it comes here, it crosses the north. So that the one line here is on street up until the bridge.
Yeah, I couldn't see that in the video.
No, yeah, it's small. We really highlighted the bridge, but didn't necessarily highlight that. No. But it's just so that we can have that connection.
And an odd question, since the railroads block the intersection quite a bit, is there any pursuit of fining them because there's laws on the books?
They pay the fine because they're still,
They're very
coming out
profitable.
ahead. But they can fund the whole project by,
Any delay can be reported to the FRA through their website, but at this time I don't believe there's any
That's been going on for decades.
Yeah, and I mean it does is a reason why we are looking at this project. But yeah, it's all I can say is let the FRA know whenever you see it, and maybe the ICC here in Illinois. But
Yeah. And the woman mentioned that there was some wetlands or something. You know where exactly she was referring to?
Yeah, so
obviously the Burnham Prairie. But
yeah, so the Powderhorn Prairie Preserve is both due to its being so close to the intersection of Burnham and Brainerd and the crossing is our primary concern when it comes to wetland impacts right now. Is making sure that we that there's a lot of endangered species that are in that area that have been identified, so we want to make sure that it's
Hello, by the way, how are you?
Good, how are you?
pretty much done with it.
Are you in the media outlet?
Check in with me in a year or two.
Hey, Mayor, what do you think about it? The projects?
Well, I think it's a good project. I think it's very much worthy, in particular when the trains are sitting at the crossing for 3 hours, or 2 to 3 hours, and it's getting seeming to get worse. So I think it's a very much needed project, and unfortunately it's going to take a little bit longer than we would like, but nevertheless I think it'd be good for the community, and not just Burnham, Chicago, Lansing, Calumet City, and all the regional cities and towns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi. Getting all the boards.
Yeah. You're just planning, right? Or what exactly do you do?
Sure. So, yes, we're all with the project team. Katie Bell from the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. This is Jennifer, also Cook County. And then Kevin and Howdy Donald. And so, yeah, at this stage we're looking at, we're just trying, the purpose of this meeting was to get feedback from the residents and hear about their concerns with the crossing, as well as, any concerns with how the project might impact them. So we'll all be kind of taking the feedback that we got in this meeting and then using that to start developing some alternatives for the crossing.
And how long you been working in this project for?
So this project, I believe we executed the contract last summer, about a year ago. So for the last year, we've been doing a lot of data collection type work, so taking surveys and traffic counts and other things to document existing conditions.
Okay. By any chance, does it look more like a bridge or an underpass? Because I was hearing some citizen concerns that an underpass might not work because there might be too much water or it be flooding and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's a thing, but would that be a big issue where you cannot do an underpass at all and you have to do a bridge?
So we'll be looking at both alternatives as part of the study. So I think at this stage we haven't looked at, overpass and underpass in detail enough to be able to say. But the next public meeting that we have for the project, that would be, our plan is that we would be showing kind of the different alternatives as well as, you know, the pros and cons of each.
Yeah.
And our hope would be to get the community's feedback on those.
Yeah, because there's an underpass on Torrance and like 130 that it's not very far from here. And I do see it flood a lot. Every time it rains, there's a lot of flooding and a lot of car accidents. So I'm not sure. At first, the underpass looked very beautiful, but I'm not sure if it's working as well as it looked. But also, there's also a bridge on State and Burnham. And that bridge, even though you have to go around to get on it and off it, it works pretty well. Like, I don't see any problem with it. So I think a bridge will work better for me. Just saying, putting it out there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking at both, and you know, anything that gets designed, we're going to have to account for drainage and making sure that it's able to drain. Obviously, we don't want it to flood either. So.
Yeah, I was hearing around that it might be ready to like drive over it or under it like in around 10 years. Would that sound around right?
Typical timeline. So, you know, right now we're in phase 1 or preliminary engineering. We currently expect that the phase 1 study will take another 2 years, and you know, we'd be wrapping that up sometime in 2024. At the end of the phase 1 study is when we have a recommended alternative. So at the end of phase 1, we would know, you know, what we're planning to do. And then after that, what's called phase 2 engineering comes next, and that would be where you take that alternative and do detailed design. So right now, we're looking at things at a high level. Once you select your alternative, then you'll get into a lot more detailed design, doing the detailed drainage, things like that. That typically takes a couple more years to get everything designed. And concurrently with that phase 2 design process, if there is any land that needs to be acquired for the project, that is when kind of all of that would be happening.
Right.
So generally, in terms of a timeline, I know that's what we've kind of been sharing with the residents, is that for a project of this size and complexity, and you know, also just for us to secure funding, everything like that, you know, 8 to 10 years would be a typical timeline of when you could see, people would actually see any kind of construction starting, but it's all contingent on obviously getting the project funded and also acquiring any needed land.
Okay. If a bridge will be the only option and you had to remove some houses around it or businesses, and those houses are not willing to sell or move, would that cancel the whole project? Like, is there a chance where this can just be canceled? Like, no. And not being the money the problem.
So as far as land acquisition goes, it all kind of comes down to negotiations with the property owners at that time. I can't predict what might happen, you know, in the future, but I think we'll try to minimize impacts to the community as part of the project as much as we can.
Okay, so you're just trying to avoid that. Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, part of this project, the phase 1 study is federally funded, and so kind of under the federal regulations, the way that, you know, you try to move these projects forward is first you try to avoid, you know, so avoid impacts if at all possible. If there are certain impacts that can't be avoided, then you work to minimize those impacts. So is there anything you can do to, you know, decrease what they are? And then of course, for any impacts that, you know, are unavoidable, you work to mitigate, you know, those impacts. So as far as any environmental impacts, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you would mitigate for those. But as far as property acquisitions, that all kind of runs through a formal negotiation process later. That's all regulated by the state.
All right. Thank you very much. And I think I did every room. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was a very nice presentation. Everything was so helpful, Spanish and English. Everybody was very, very helpful and very informative. So thank you very much. Have a good night. Good night.